this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my electrician I found on Angie.com to bury my pet hamster Nibbles in our yard for me? Because I was so moved by how carefully he buried my electrical wires, I knew I could trust him to bury my sweet Nibbles after his untimely end. Nibbles, gone too soon. May he scurry in peace.
Hey, sorry about your pet, but I just wire stuff.
Nibbles would have loved you like a brother.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Support for The Middle comes from the Tyler Dickman Foundation, now matching your donations dollar for dollar for a limited time at listentothemiddle.com. Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. Our DJ Tolliver is here as well. And Tolliver, you know, we did a special town hall last week in Minnesota. Very powerful to hear from people there about what is happening with ICE. And I just want to remind everyone, if you didn't catch that show, you can find it on The Middle podcast, where you can hear everything from The Middle except for Tolliver's music, because we don't have the rights on the podcast.
Yes, on the radio I'm a DJ, but then on a podcast I'm just like the devil on your shoulder.
Just
just
Tolliver.
a voice in your head.
All right, well, this hour, Tolliver, we are talking about the middle class, what it is, and just how achievable it is these days. Now, obviously, income is part of that equation, but so is the cost of living, which is why middle class may mean something very different depending on where you live in the United States and how you live. Does middle class still mean home ownership, having health care, child care, a good education? Because, spoiler alert, all of those things are more expensive now than they were just a few years ago. So this hour, we want to hear from you about what the middle class means to you and whether you think it is still achievable. You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. Or you can write in at listentothemiddle.com, and we're going to get to your calls in just a moment. But first, to some of your voicemails from last week about what the events in Minneapolis mean for the future of immigration enforcement and for our democracy. Take a listen.
Hey, it's Hayden Pasternak from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm a 17-year-old senior. Yes, we don't want criminals in society, but does that mean every single person that ICE picks up is going to be a criminal? No. Right? My cousin's boyfriend is scared for his life, and he's a permanent resident, but they're picking up residents. They're picking up green card holders for what? And all it does is harm communities and sow further division.
Hey, my name is Ray Cubby in Nashville. If they are serious, law-abiding officers, they should not be wearing masks, and they should have identifying badges and names and body cams, just like we expect of our police officers.
Hi, my name is Glenn. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I support ICE, but ICE isn't the problem. It's our president. This is not about immigration. Obama deported millions without this happening. It's because of Donald Trump and his targeting of blue states.
Well, thanks to everyone who called in. Now to our topic this hour, the middle class, what it means to you, and is it achievable? Tolliver, one more time with how people can reach us.
Yeah, you can call us at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com or comment on our live stream on YouTube.
Well, joining us this hour, journalist Ray Suarez, host of Wisdom Keepers on PBS. Ray, welcome back.
Good to be with you.
And Daniel Markovits, a professor of law at Yale University and author of the book, The Meritocracy Trap. Daniel, welcome to the middle.
Thanks for having me on. I look forward to the conversation.
Well, and I want to get to why you believe meritocracy is a trap and what that has to do with the middle class. But first, Daniel, I've seen a range for middle class as Americans earning between $55,000 and $167,000 a year, which is a big range. What do you think the middle class is today in this country?
Yeah, so first of all, as you said in your intro, a lot depends on where you live. And that's one of the reasons why that range is so big, because housing in particular is incredibly differently expensive. But the other thing that I think that's really important that was not included in your list is a credible chance that your kids, if you have them, will get the kind of education that gets them at least the standard of living that you've had. And for people who have children, that I think is actually probably the most important part of being middle class, that you think you can provide for your kids the training they'll need to have an adulthood that's as good or better than yours.
Well, and you're joining us from the ivory tower at Yale right now. Do you think that that is still possible for people to have that education for their kids that they want?
Well, I think it's an irony that the place where it's most impossible is in the early years. So, the average American public school spends $12,000 to $15,000 per student per year educating their kids. The 20 most elite private schools in America average about $70,000 to $75,000 a year per student educating their kids. Those schools have about 80% of the students from households with over $200,000 a year of income. So at that point in the system, it's really, really hard if you're not pretty privileged to get your kid a really fancy education. If they graduate high school and have the scores and record that they need to get into Harvard, Harvard will let them go for free at this stage. Mm-hmm. So the real bottleneck is getting to the point where you can get admitted, not what's happening once you're admitted.
Ray Suarez, what about you? What do you think the middle class is in 2026?
Well, I think the middle class has always been something of a fantasy. And when you laid out those numbers, $55,000 to $167,000 or something like that, it shows what a nonsensical, more cultural idea, more of a headspace than a numerically quantifiable thing, no matter where you live. Every now and then I see somebody in social media saying, oh my God, I make $250,000 a year and I'm not even middle class because I live in Brooklyn. Get wise to yourself, pal. Yes, things are more expensive in Brooklyn than they are in Davenport, Iowa. That's very true. But being middle class has a lot to do with expectations, aspirations, and your assumptions about the future. When you compare it to the way poor people see the way they acquire and spend money, when you compare it to the way really rich people acquire and spend money, being middle class is more of a cultural thing than a numbers thing.
Well, and Ray, the Conservative American Enterprise Institute came out with a study that found that the reason the middle class is shrinking, and it is shrinking by their numbers, is because more Americans are moving to the upper middle class, which the AEI says
people are graduating. The bulge above the middle class is much larger. There are people who fall out the bottom, too. And you want to see people who are terrified. Talk to families who worry about falling down that ladder. That has fueled a lot of the resentment and a lot of the fight for resources over housing, schooling, and just living space in American metropolitan areas ever since the Second World War, that fear of falling.
Daniel Markovits, why does it matter beyond the individual about having a strong middle class? Why is it important, or is it important to our democracy to have a strong middle class?
Well, I think it's extremely important to our democracy for two reasons at least. The first is, as we've been saying, being in the middle class is connected to having a reliable way of providing for yourself and improving your life and improving your life for your children. And democracies fundamentally are optimistic political regimes. They're places where the average person thinks things are getting better, not things are getting catastrophically worse. It's very hard to run a democracy when everybody is afraid. And one reason it's important to have a big middle class is the middle class is the optimistic class of a society. It's a society that has more to win than to lose and thinks it's going to win it. And that's important for a democracy. The second thing is, it's really important for a democracy that you have a citizenry that understands one another and that has a shared experience of life. And one of the things that's happened as our middle class has disappeared is not just that income is being pushed to the ends of the distribution. It's that the rich and the rest are no longer, they don't worship in the same places, they don't shop in the same places, they don't watch the same media, they don't read the same books, their kids don't go to the same schools, they don't eat the same foods, they don't take the same vacations. And all of that creates a citizenry that can't see each other eye to eye. Very hard to run a democracy if people can't look each other in the eye.
What do you think about that, Ray, the importance for society of having a strong middle class?
I agree with Daniel that it's absolutely vital, because countries with a hollowed out middle are countries that have revolutions. If you've got nothing in between the top and the bottom, that's a very unstable society historically. And there is, again, back to that middle class being a headspace as opposed to just numbers, there is a certain attitude toward expectations that's held by middle class people. They have something to protect and they have something to aspire to. And those two impulses help keep a kind of equilibrium in society.
Daniel, just want to get to the title of your book, The Meritocracy Trap. Can you explain the connection between meritocracy and middle class, and why do you think it's not working?
Sure. So a meritocracy is an economic and social order in which people get ahead based on their accomplishments, rather than, say, their race or their gender or their birthright. And the idea behind meritocracy is that it gives everybody a fair shot at getting ahead, and it creates an elite that's accomplished and that does well by doing good for society. The problem is that there are three inputs to accomplishments. There's your native ability, there's your effort, and there's your training. And native ability and effort are spread across the population pretty evenly. But what's happened in America is that training is not.
Youth sports families and fans, huddle up. Wherever life takes you, Game Changer keeps you connected. Stream games live in full HD when you can't be there. Get play-by-play updates right on your phone. And share game highlights with everyone. Full bragging rights included. Live the game like never before with Game Changer. Create your free account today at gc.com.
And elites have invested enormously more in training their children than anyone else can afford. And because training works, the consequence of that is when you look at 18-year-olds or 25-year-olds and you see who is most accomplished, it's overwhelmingly kids of rich parents, because they've had an incredible amount of education crammed into them. And they have both the benefits and the burdens of that, but the benefits mean it's really hard for everybody else to compete.
Well, I would love to hear from our listeners. Again, our number is 844-4MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. You can go to listentothemiddle.com. We've been hearing about people falling out of the middle class. Are you one of those people that you're worried that you won't be able to stay in the middle class? Are you thinking that you do have the optimism that you're going to be able to rise up to the upper middle class, as so many people apparently have done? What do you think the middle class is in this country? Is it achievable for you? Again, 844-464-3353 is our number. We're going to get your calls in a moment. Tolliver, President Trump, as you know, won the White House in 2024 with a populist message saying he was going to be fighting for working Americans.
Yeah, and his signature legislative achievement passed last summer was the so-called Big Beautiful Bill Act, which he says will help middle-class Americans.
It's a massive tax cut for the middle class. It's a massive tax cut for jobs. And it's, I mean, think of it, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. So seniors, I don't know how you could vote for anybody else. And, just think of that, and no tax on overtime. So you work overtime, you don't have to pay tax on overtime. That's good.
By the way, those new tax deductions are available for your 2025 tax returns, but there are many exceptions to those. So check the fine print or check your local listings.
Stop. Local listings. Wow.
I know, that's an old reference. We'll be right back with your calls coming up on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle. From beautiful northern Italy. With very special guests. Every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my electrician I found on Angie.com to bury my pet hamster Nibbles in our yard for me? Because I was so moved by how carefully he buried my electrical wires, I knew I could trust him to bury my sweet Nibbles after his untimely end. Nibbles, gone too soon. May he scurry in peace.
Hey, sorry about your pet, but I just wire stuff.
Nibbles would have loved you like a brother.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
How do you make chicken nuggets like 7,000% better? Short answer, you let Taco Bell make them. Long answer, start with all white meat chicken nuggets, bread them in crunchy tortilla chips, and serve them with Hidden Valley Diablo Ranch. Yep, that's Hidden Valley Ranch mixed with Taco Bell Diablo sauce. It's exactly what it sounds like, and somehow even better. Simple math, spicy results. Crispy chicken nuggets from Taco Bell. A brand new classic. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only, while supplies last.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking what the middle class means to you and if it is still achievable. Tolliver, what is the number to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com.
And the lines are filling up. I'm joined by Yale law professor Daniel Markovits and journalist Ray Suarez. And before we get to those phone lines, Daniel, you heard a moment ago the president talk about no taxes on tips, no federal taxes, we should say, on tips, overtime, and Social Security in the Big Beautiful Bill Act. He says that will help the middle class. Do you agree?
Well, the net effect of that bill was to give much, much bigger tax deductions to the rich than to the middle class. That's not to say there was nothing in it that benefited someone in the middle class. But, you know, when you're talking about policy, the question is always compared to what? And there would be another way to reorganize our tax system to massively benefit the middle class. One problem we have in this country is that middle class labor is the highest taxed factor of production in the economy. More than capital and more than elite labor for various reasons. And that enormously suppresses the demand for middle class labor. And that's a big problem for our labor market.
That is the famous thing about Warren Buffett paying a lower tax rate than his secretary. Ray Suarez, just one thing to you. You had mentioned other countries. I wonder, do other countries have the same issues with their shrinking middle class that we do, as far as you can see?
Well, a lot of them are struggling to grow the middle class. And the country that I've been visiting a lot in recent years is China. I lived there for a time and taught there as well. And they have a rapidly growing middle class, filled with both anxiety and aspiration. And the place is just a booming and also tremendously unequal place. I think of it like the United States in the late 19th century, but showing tremendous promise in much the same way.
Let's get to the phones. Hayden is calling in from Denver, Colorado. Hayden, what is the middle class to you?
Hey there. This is Hayden in Denver. Definitely owning property, either land or a house, for sure, would be my goal.
And do you think you'll be able to achieve that?
No, not with my current salary. And as you mentioned earlier, with the tax rate that we have in the middle class, I don't think it is attainable for me, especially as a single person in a large metro area. So,
what do you think it would take for you to be able to attain it?
Well, talking about wealthy parents earlier, it would take, the passing on of wealth from the previous generation, or an investment from the government in the future of this country.
Hayden, thank you very much for that. Daniel, one thing that I read was that the group of people in the United States that have moved into the middle class from the lower class at the highest rate over the last several decades are people 65 and older. What do you think about what you just heard there from Hayden?
Well, one thing that's very important about people 65 and older is that, we have a government program, Social Security, and it is both forced savings throughout your life and a significant measure of redistribution from, those who pay in the most get the most out, but they don't get it commensurately. They redistribute to everybody else. And what that means is that basically this is a program that cured old age poverty. It's not true that there's no old age poverty in America, but the rates of poverty for people in retirement are lower than the rates of poverty for people at prime working age, and it's because of Social Security. So one thing that's important, this goes to what your caller said in the end about an investment from the government. It turns out that well-designed government investments in the well-being of the population work, and we should have more of them.
Let's go to Ashley in New Orleans. Ashley, go ahead with your thoughts about the middle class.
Hi. I just, as the whole conversation, feel like the divide between the haves and the have-nots has gotten greater, and I've seen evidence of this absolutely in my own life, where most of my family is on the bottom side, and then I have one member that's on the top, and it's just outrageous, the disparity. I myself had wonderful educational opportunities. I had a full ride to college. I graduated with no debt, and I still make less than $30,000 a year living in the South. There are I know friends who have applied to hundreds of jobs and gotten no interviews. Opportunities and job growth is very slow, especially down here. And most people think, it's so much cheaper to live in the South. But, I have a panic attack when I go to the grocery store. It's so expensive. New Orleans is a little bit unique in that our housing costs just skyrocketed after Katrina, as many places experience after a great disaster. Oftentimes, investors will swoop in and change the entire market to where it prices people out. So that, insurances, even people who are, comfortably retired have had to leave their forever homes because they can't afford to protect them in case something else happens. They've just had to go elsewhere.
Yeah. Ashley, I really appreciate your call. And Ray Suarez, she brings up investors coming in, swooping in, buying homes. You do have a lot of wealthy people in this country, wealthy institutions in this country that end up making the problem bigger for people at the low end and make it more difficult for them to get into the middle class.
Big corporations snatching up single family houses zoomed, like we really put the pedal to the metal after the 08-09 banking and housing crisis.
Which by the way was brought to you by the buying of mortgage-backed securities by also investors who made the problem much more difficult for ordinary people.
I was in subdivisions in and around Las Vegas when the worst of it was biting. And people were just loading up trucks and driving away from their homes and leaving them there to whatever happened. The county would take them, the bank would take them. And I was in a subdivision outside Phoenix, and I talked to the guy who had planned it, and he said, this is wonderful. This was before everything hit the fan in 08. He said, we have construction workers working on this subdivision who are buying 3 of these houses for themselves, one to live in, one to rent, and one to flip. That's the kind of craziness that was building up inside the housing market before the crisis began. And now people can't afford to buy one house.
Daniel Markovits, isn't it also bad for rich people when you have a shrinking middle class, though? Do they have an incentive to keep the middle class strong?
Well, I'd say it's bad for rich people for 3 reasons. First is, once you have a certain amount of wealth, more doesn't actually make you better off. So rich people are chasing money that will not actually benefit their lives. The second is that there's enormous social and political instability connected to a shrinking middle class and to inequality in general. And there's lots of data across countries. The rich in England, the rich in France are not nearly as rich as the rich in America. They live longer. And there's a reason for that, which is that the social structure that produces inequality really cuts into the lives of the rich. And then the third is, when you have this kind of inequality, being born to a fair amount of privilege is a necessary condition for getting ahead yourself as a kid, but it's not a guarantee. And so the rich in America live in constant fear that their children will fall out of the elite. And that puts an enormous strain on rich kids. That, of course, doesn't make them natural objects of sympathy if you're excluded, but it also means it's not really fun to be in that class either.
Let's go to Travis, who's in Rupert, Idaho. Travis, what are your thoughts on the middle class?
Yeah, I think there was a great comment that was said earlier about the middle class being a mindset. And I think we're starting to see that mindset begin to degrade across America, especially with that youth. I mean, you look at these 15 to 30-year-olds that are really just focused on video games, social media, and the internet. And I think that's really beginning to degrade our moral base within the country. And we're starting to see less ambition. And with that less ambition, we have less kids that are just willing and wanting to go out and do and try more things. I mean, we live in America. It's one of the best countries in the world. The most opportunity, I would say, across a plethora of other countries. And we have kids sitting on couches without desire and ambition. And I think a lot of that has to be said about our entertainment and the growth of that entertainment industry and how it's just really sapping away at our youth. So I think if we want to grow the middle class more, we have to really reinfuse them with, I would say old morals and more ambition. And I think we'll begin to see, less of these problems. That's one issue, right? I think that's one solution across several. But
well, let me ask Ray Suarez what he thinks about that. Ray,
in a lot of countries where people are struggling to join the middle class, I've always been impressed, struck by the amount of hustles a lot of people will have. You ask them what they do, and they'll tell you 3 different things because they're working 60 hours a week. If you get a large number of people feeling, well, what's the use? I could do that, but what's the use? That's a recipe for disaster, and I think we just heard that from our caller. A feeling that defeat is already in the cards. I'm never going to be able to buy a house. I'm never going to be able to have a kid. I'm never going to be able to have a stable home with a married couple at the core of it. There is a lot of that fatalism among younger people. I don't know if everybody hears it, but I certainly do.
Tolliver, speaking of people that do a lot of things,
I was thinking it,
jobs, what's coming in at listentothemiddle.com?
Billy in Savannah says, the middle class used to be for everyone. Now it's for doctors, lawyers, bankers, and engineers. The problem was never the coffee and avocado toast. Johanna's in Florida says, when you go to an elite school, the main benefit is networks. Even if a poor student happened to luck into Harvard, they will still, on average, be less successful than the offspring of the wealthy. So.
Interesting. More of your thoughts at listentothemiddle.com or 844-464-3353. Let me go to Larissa, who's calling from Aurora, Illinois. Larissa, what about you? Is the middle class achievable to you?
Okay. I just wanted to say I fell out of the middle class. It took a job loss. That was it. And all of a sudden I went from considering myself middle class to filing for Medicaid and needing SNAP benefits. And, we took on a lot of debt. And I'm now working 2 jobs to try to get us out of that. But I don't have any confidence that I will ever consider myself middle class again.
Do you think that there are bigger issues, obviously besides the job loss, Larissa? Is there something that made it more difficult for you to get back into the middle class, or is there something that could be done that would make it more attainable for you?
Having some sort of confidence in terms of job security that doesn't exist anymore. Having a chance at actual health care, because that's another one that I see knock people off their feet, is, you get a cancer diagnosis and your health care is not affordable. So I think those two basic social networks in our society, they're not available to the average American citizen anymore.
Larissa, thank you for that. And Daniel, she brings up Medicaid and makes you think about the safety net that exists at the low end of the economic ladder, but not so much for people who are in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, one distinguishing feature of the U.S. among rich countries is that it doesn't have effectively guaranteed health care for everybody. And somebody once said to me that it seemed to him obvious that the necessary condition for getting medical care is that you're sick, and that's it. Not that you're sick and you can pay. In most of the rest of the rich world, that is in fact the case. And we think of it significantly as kind of a problem of people's health. But as your caller said, it's also a huge problem of their economic security and their social status. Because when you get sick and need to pay a lot of money, everything else falls apart too. And even if you end up getting better, the rest of it is much harder to build back than your health, actually. And that's a huge social cost of the system that we have right now, and it's borne by millions of Americans all the time, totally unnecessarily. Totally unnecessarily.
Let's get to James, who's in Brevard, North Carolina. Hi, James. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi, yes, thank you. I think the middle class is achievable, but it's narrowing for sure. I would make the distinction between those who have an hourly wage job, with very little or no work-provided benefits like health care. And then you have those, I would say, are the middle class who live on a salary and have that health care. And then the upper class who are those who live off of investments and, investment income and capital gains. And it is much more difficult now to get those stable salary jobs as salariates. You got the proletariat, the salariat, and the bourgeoisie. And my wife and I have made choices, like we decided not to have kids so that we could take, more trips, for example. But also I would say, as I mentioned, with a background in urban planning, I perceive that a lot of the socioeconomic inequalities really blew up at the early 20th century with the advent of the personal automobile that facilitated the flight of middle and upper class folks from the city cores that used to have all sorts of social economic groups living together and building a society. And then those who could get the car and get the land and had the money and were not red zoned out because of racism, were able to buy, these homesteads that they were heavily marketed to out in the suburban periphery, leaving the cities with no tax base, amplifying the divides. And then you have the interstates cut through historic town quarters. So it's been this systemic factor, that was pushed by oil lobbies and chemical companies back then.
You've thought a lot about this, James. You've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I thank you for that call, and I'll just go to Ray Suarez here, because one of the things he brought up there was deciding not to have kids, and it gets to your point about the importance of kids in this conversation.
James, I wrote a whole book about what you were just talking about. And, the middle class was, in the post-war decades, in a large measure built by government subsidies. An ocean of invisible subsidies held up new suburbs being built all around metropolitan America and even further out in the exurbs. The interstate highway system, and on and on and on. But now look at this. I mean, James, and I'm sure others, are thinking of kids as a luxury. And yeah, it is expensive to raise kids. Absolutely. One of my 3 kids said that they're never having kids. And why would they bring kids into a world like this? And I told her it was an act of hope, just like when we had her.
Well, Tolliver, promising to help the middle class is basically a presidential tradition at this point.
Yeah, Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush, they all talked about it. And listen to this TV ad from Bill Clinton when he ran for president back in 1992.
For 12 years, the politicians in Washington have raised their pay, cut taxes on the rich, and raised taxes on the middle class.
That's wrong. I'm Bill Clinton, and I think you deserve a change. That's why I've offered a plan to get the economy moving again, starting with a middle-class tax cut and asking the rich to pay their fair share again. In 11 years as governor, I've never had a pay raise, and as president, I'll veto pay raises in Washington until middle-class incomes are going up again. Let's put government back on the side of the people for a change.
Paid for by Clinton for president.
And that was before politicians had to say they approved this message. Remember those days, Tolliver?
No.
Come on. Yes, you do. We'll be right back with more of your calls on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call a doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. This hour we're asking what the middle class means to you and if it is still achievable. I'm joined by journalist Ray Suarez and Yale law professor Daniel Markovits, who's author of The Meritocracy Trap. You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353, or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com. Before we get back to the phones, Daniel, you heard a moment ago I said that almost half of 18 to 27-year-olds rely on financial assistance from their parents. What about the generational issue here? We have heard for many years that younger Americans are now less likely to make as much as their parents get. So what you've been talking about this hour.
Yeah, I mean, one astonishing thing about this is that if you compare the cohort that was born in the 40s and 50s to the cohort that was born in the 80s and 90s, it's true that on average almost everybody is less likely to make more than their parents than used to be the case. The drop-off is biggest in the middle of the distribution. So the poorest Americans continue actually to be relatively likely to make more than their parents. And the richest Americans are also relative, but it's the middle class that is suffering most in terms of disappointed expectations. And this goes back, Ray, to your observation about hopefulness in a mindset, is that the mindset of a realistic chance of improvement and something to lose is most being pulled away from the middle of the distribution. The poor and the rich are not feeling it the same way that the middle class are.
Let's go to Miles, who's calling in from South Bend, Indiana. Miles, what about you? Is the middle class still achievable?
As a 24-year-old, I've spent my life in the middle class. My mother is a hairdresser. She owns her salon. And my dad is a high school teacher, and he's been at his school for 25 years. So fortunately for me, both of my parents have been employed for my whole life. And, it's not like we went on lavish vacations, and if we went on any, it wasn't often. Both of them I've seen work and struggle through the whole thing, but I would still consider myself lucky to have what we have. And part of that is the fact that my family has a home that we own and that we have owned for, I am the fourth generation in this home. If people my age can't afford to buy homes, even if they spend, the average home buyer right now is 33. That number only goes up every year. So part of the conversation tonight has been on why young people are discouraged or not working as hard as they should necessarily. But even at 80 hours a week with, the job that is available, whatever that might be, if the average home keeps increasing, how am I ever supposed to afford it?
Well, Miles, do you have optimism? Do you have optimism that you're going to end up in a better financial situation than your parents?
I don't know that I have optimism. I think that, once again, I'm fortunate. I have two parents with jobs, and one of those has a retirement fund. There's not much more that I can say. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world as it is without thinking about jobs and houses.
Yeah. Miles, really appreciate your call. Thank you very much for that. Ray Suarez, we've just heard it straight from somebody who's dealing with exactly what we've been talking about this hour.
And the jobs that he described for his parents would have been foundational for him to be able to stand on their shoulders. Someone who's been teaching in the public schools for 25 years is going to retire with a pension. There's a family home. His mother owns a business, owns a beauty salon. I mean, that's solid foundation on which to stand as you begin your own class journey. But it's not as sure a thing as it was. I think one of the biggest changes between when I graduated college in 1978 and now is the amount of debt that people in their early 20s are already carrying, or in many cases have had their own parents co-sign for, so that millions of people are entering their 50s and 60s as co-owners of college debt. This is something we've never seen before. Also, an unprecedented number of people are entering their 60s still with mortgages. So there's a lot of ballast. There's a lot of weight holding down aspirations as people enter the later decades of their working life as well.
John is calling in from Dallas-Fort Worth. John, I hear you want to talk about homeownership and its connection to the middle class.
Yeah, hey, I'm here. That is probably the key factor for me as being solidly middle class is homeownership. And it is, I am fortunate enough to own a home with a mortgage that is affordable. But even my own home in DFW, just the past years, has become, I would not be able to afford it myself right now if I were to purchase it new. And that is such a key area for just middle classness to me. And further, I find many people my age, and especially younger, really are not taught financial foundations to just elevate themselves, just with just the knowledge to help save, invest, to acquire property, to properly just build on their own. They don't receive the education, or they don't think it's even helpful.
Yeah. How old are you, by the way? You said your age and younger.
I'm about 40 now.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And, I'm glad you brought up the issue of financial literacy. Daniel, that's a big thing, even just people knowing how to use a credit card, which can get you into so much trouble if you don't know how to use it. But I wondered, is that sort of thing, not knowing about mortgages, not knowing about credit, not knowing about those sorts of things, does that keep people out of the middle class?
I think it does a little bit, but I also think that, much more important, there's a big question you always have to ask. If people are struggling, if large numbers of people are struggling, is it because of something in their mindset or their knowledge that they could change individually, or is it because of the circumstances they find themselves in? And I'm inclined to think if large numbers of people are struggling, it's probably because of the circumstances they find themselves in. And even on financial matters, from the Clinton administration forward, one feature of U.S. housing policy has been to make mortgage debt and other kinds of consumer credit more and more tempting to middle-class people in order, in some sense, to disguise the fact that their wages aren't growing by allowing them to debt finance their consumption. So between the end of the Second World War and 1975, average incomes, median incomes, middle-class incomes, and middle-class consumption went up together. And starting around 1975, middle-class income started stagnating and middle-class consumption kept on going up. And the way you do that is you debt finance it all. And the way the state does that is it creates a series of policies that encourage people to take out debt they can't quite afford and that inflates some asset bubbles to disguise the fact that they're really borrowing. And that's the story of the past 30 years, and it's been very, very damaging to the balance sheet of the middle class.
And we know the thing about bubbles that's so annoying is that they pop occasionally.
At some point, they do.
Do cause a lot of problems. Philip is calling in from Baltimore, Maryland. Hi, Philip. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi. I just wanted to say that really the middle class doesn't exist anymore. We have, 0.1% or 1% of the population that owns more than half the wealth. So in order for the middle class to come back, those people are going to have to give up some of their resources. And we know that's not going to happen. And two, we've run out of ambition. Nobody wants to work for low wages and getting nothing out of it.
What do you do, Philip?
Currently, I do delivery services and I do odd jobs and I just pick up whatever I can. And I'm a classically trained chef.
And how much of the week do you have to work? Like how many hours are you putting in?
No less than 45 hours.
Wow. And are you able to make enough of a living at this point?
On my own, no. I have to live with other people in order to be able to survive.
Philip, thank you for that. Ray Suarez bringing up the idea that, according to Philip, the rich are going to have to give up some in order for the middle class to have a real chance.
We have never been able to successfully have a class-based politics in this country, not since the 1930s, because we have dazzled people in the middle class with the possibility of no longer being middle class. So they see class interest as lying in the class that they want to be a member of rather than the one that they're in. More and more people make more and more of their money from ways other than wages. And the tendency in recent decades has been to treat that income preferentially. And that's how we get to the situation where our caller notes that a very small percentage of people own a really big percentage of the overall economy. That's how we got there. If you suggested that you take something away from them to make it equal, that's sort of not, that doesn't go in American political rhetoric. It's always grow the pie, not distribute the existing pie in a different way.
Let's try for Randy, who's calling in from Laurel Springs, New Jersey. Hi, Randy. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much. I feel very differently. I think that the middle class is very important. I think it's very valuable. I think that the middle class represents all the public service and the caring of people. and it's the foundation for many, many things. So they're helping themselves, and they're helping people they know and other people they don't know, and that is what's valuable. So that it's not so much dollars; it's about quality of life, not necessarily quantity. You can still make all the opportunities and things you would like, and there's so much opportunity. I feel like it's unlimited. The only thing that's needed is a little more respect for the middle class, I think.
What do you mean by that?
Middle class is involved with everything. I mean, from different groups of people or different levels, different things. Not always, it's just. I don't know. It's like some people assume things for people in the middle class, or they think of offers or opportunities, but maybe they don't offer them, and different things like that. So I feel that people are working hard and they're enjoying life, and they feel that they're valuable because they're offering things. So working with their hands and their mind and their hearts, that's a good life.
Yeah. Randy, thank you for that. It's interesting. Daniel, she brings up the idea that maybe people in the middle class, in her view, are not necessarily doing it for the money. They're doing it for the service. They're doing it for other reasons.
Well, one of the things you want in a society is for people who provide for the public to get paid reasonably well. And just as an example, if you ask, what does an average nurse or teacher or garbage collector contribute to our overall well-being, just to GDP, and you ask what share of that do they take home as income, the answer is about 10%. And if you ask, what does a Wall Street banker contribute to GDP, and what share of that do they take home as income, the answer is about 100%. And so what we've constructed is a labor market that allows certain kinds of people to capture all of their social product for themselves. And other kinds of people, like the people your caller's talking about, are providing a huge social product, but they get only a little bit of it for themselves. And if they just got a little bit more, they would be better off, and our society would be better off.
I think we can sneak in one more call here. I'm going to go to Mark, who is calling in from Oswego, Illinois. Mark, as an Illinoisan, I'm sorry if I said Oswego wrong, because I haven't been there before, but tell me, what are your thoughts?
It's Oswego.
Oswego.
My thoughts were that the middle class would be different in every city depending upon the housing costs. But I grew up in what I thought would be stable middle America, where the average household had one income provider, and the other partner in a married situation would be raising the children. And they would be able to afford to have that with one car, one house, one income provider raising 3 to 4 children. Not the dollar amount that we say that we have to have, or, $50,000 to $150,000, whatever that range was. It depends upon where you live, but it should be that we actually strive for a society where one household would have one income. And back when I was being raised, we lived pretty modest. 900 square foot home with 6 children, but one income provider. Most of the kids in the neighborhood, that's what they had. The ones that had 2 income providers and the children were raised either by the parents sharing it or grandparents taking care of the kids, they lived a lot better when they had 2 incomes.
Well, just very briefly, Mark, what do you think happened?
I think what happened was the change of the idea of trickle-down economics, where all of a sudden we cut taxes for the wealthy and the corporations, and we put more taxes on the middle class.
Mark, thank you for that call. And Ray Suarez, your thoughts?
Pursuant to what our caller noted and what Daniel said earlier, that split in 1974 is something that's felt by people in a couple of different generations. They saw it happen in real time. More and more women entered the workplace. Raises got smaller. The cost of living hikes accelerated, and workers started to bring home less and less in income in the increases in productivity that they helped create in the workplace. And that money went up the ladder and didn't go down.
Daniel Markovits, I'm just going to give you the last word here. If you could do one thing, wave a magic wand, and strengthen the middle class in this country, what would it be?
If I could do one thing, I would create an education policy that massively democratizes education by giving elite schools all throughout the distribution from kindergarten through graduate school a combination of carrots and sticks to make them increase their enrollments and to take more kids from the middle of the income distribution.
Well, it's interesting because these days it seems like we are going more in a direction of school choice, as they call it, away from public education. So, which is a whole other show that we are going to do soon. But for now, that is what we've got time for. Daniel Markovits, professor of law at Yale University and author of the book, The Meritocracy Trap, and Ray Suarez, journalist and host of Wisdom Keepers on PBS. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you very much. And nice to be on with you, Ray.
Same.
Always good to have Ray on. Tolliver, next week we have a themed show for Valentine's Day.
Ooh, yeah, we want to know if you think it's possible to be in a relationship with someone who has different political views. Our number is 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can go to listentothemiddle.com.
The Middle is brought to you by Long Neck Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, Sam Burmistaz, John Barth, Annika Deschler, and Brandon Kondritz. Our technical director is Steve Mork. Don't forget to subscribe to our Substack newsletter. It is listentothemiddle.substack.com. I'm Jeremy Hobson. I will talk to you next week.
Owning a home is full of surprises. Some wonderful, some not so much. And when something breaks, it can feel like the whole day unravels. That's why HomeServe exists. For as little as $4.99 a month, you'll always have someone to call. A trusted professional ready to help, bringing peace of mind to 4.5 million homeowners nationwide. For plans starting at just $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. That's homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
You see it instantly. It's Cold Water Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.